Okay. Thank you everyone for being here today for our workshop on how to write impactful resumes for when you are submitting job and internship application. Today we will discuss first what a resume should do. Then we'll talk about, we'll focus on the chronological resume. We'll also review a few other common resume formats, but we're going to be focusing on the chronological resume. Then we will discuss how to describe your experiences in greater detail and how to tailor the experience to the job you're applying for. We'll review some general do's and don'ts. We'll talk about what an applicant tracking system is, or ATS for short. And then I will show you how you can use AI as a tool when you're updating or creating your resume. So resumes are really your first opportunity to make a strong impression for to showcase why you're a good fit for the position you're applying for. So you should be using it to highlight your skills, experiences, and achievements in a way that stands out to hiring managers. When written effectively, a resume should be generating you interview offers. It should also be tailored and targeted, so every resume that you write will be slightly different. What will help is reading through the job description or the internship description for the position you're applying for and using it as a guide for how to present your skills and experience on your resume. You'll want to use keywords, skills, experiences that are mentioned in the job description and connect them to your own experience. You'll also want to make sure that you're focusing on the most relevant parts of your background. You'll want to mention experience that's relevant to the job that you're applying for. So this could be your education, volunteer work, any internship experience. If you don't have professional work experience, you can include any projects that are relevant to the opportunity you're applying for. You will also want to include exact key matches of keywords and required skills that are mentioned in the job description. So try to avoid acronyms or abbreviations. You'll want to stick to the keywords exactly as they appear on the job or internship description, or as close to how they appear on that description. And we'll talk more about why that's relevant when we discuss applicant tracking systems, or ATS. Lastly, you want to make sure you're highlighting all of your experiences, whether they're paid or unpaid. So you want to include volunteer and project experience, and highlight experiences that explain how you've grown as an artist or designer. And you want to connect that experience to how you can make a positive impact in the role that you're applying for. There's quite a few different kinds of resumes. One of the most common types of resumes that we recommend that you start off with is a chronological resume format. It's also known as the reverse chronological resume. It's typically used by recent college graduates or students, and it emphasizes your experiences in, well, it lists your experiences in reverse chronological order. It emphasizes your most recent job first, followed by previous roles, and ending with your earliest position. It offers employers a quick overview of your professional experience and shows how you've evolved professionally. A functional resume is a bit different in that it focuses more on skills areas, so provides employers a summary of or an overview of your skills and strengths instead of describing your experiences as it relates to a specific title. This type of resume is organized by those 3 or 4 different skills areas and that's where you would write about the experience that are relevant to experiences that are relevant to the job that you're applying for. A chrono-functional resume is also known as a hybrid resume. It is a combination of both chronological and a functional resume. And it shows your skills, but it shows a summary of skills, but it also shows your experiences in reverse chronological order. Now, a CV, or a curriculum vitae, is an overview of all of your artistic achievements. This is usually used whenever you are applying for grad school, residencies, grants, teaching positions, that's when you would normally be requested to submit a CV. You'll also notice if you're applying to opportunities outside of the US, you might be asked to submit a CV rather than a resume. This is a really good place for you to include any publications, group or solo exhibitions, etc. And normally CVs are longer than 1 page, whereas we recommend that you keep your chronological resume format to 1 page. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the chronological resume. As a reminder, so the goal of this type of resume is to show your experience and projects, or list your experience and projects from most recent to least recent. One of the benefits is that it shows your career narrative. It shows how long you've worked in a certain role because it shows the start and end dates that you were in that role. And then it shows also the direction that you're looking to take in your career. So to start off, the chronological resume, you'll notice, has first your information on the very top of the resume should be clear, easy to find. You should have a name, a title that targets the roles that you're wanting to apply for. You should also have your contact information, including a location, so a city, state, and zip code. You don't need to have your full address, but a city, state, and zip code. You can have a phone number, that's optional. If you do have a phone number, be sure that your voicemail is set up and you have a professional greeting, just in case an employer is not able to reach you. They can still leave you a message and they can confirm that they are reaching out to the correct person. Also have an email address, a professional email address. Include something that you check either daily or at least a couple of times a week. And your portfolio website. The portfolio website should be linked. This is something that we've heard from recruiters is something that they still don't, or that they still see a lot of where students submit resumes that are, they don't have the portfolio website linked. So you want to make sure you do have that linked since hiring managers are looking at lots of resumes. Something as simple as having it linked can make a big difference when they're trying to get through lots of different application or applicant materials. Next, you can have an objective. That's optional. That would go right above the education section. An objective is a really good place for you to explain to hiring managers what your goals are, why you're a good fit for the role, especially if you've had a shift in your career or you have little professional experience or just little experience that you don't have in your projects or professional experience. You can explain why you're a good fit for the role in the objectives. Just to be sure that the objective is concise. It should be about 2 to 3 sentences. It should be very brief and it should share information that you can't find anywhere else in your resume. If you don't have an objective, that's okay. You can move on into your work experience. Your work experience should start off with your title first, and then the name of the employer, the location, and then the dates that you were present there. So the month and the date, and to the month and the date, or if you're currently working there, then you can have present there. And then underneath that, you'll want to have a couple of bullet points. Try to have at least 3 or more that highlight accomplishments that you've completed over the course of your time there or that you are completing during your time there if it's a present responsibility. You want to make sure you're highlighting any responsibilities that you had and how provide examples of how you impacted that particular organization. All right. So let's go to the next one. Excuse me. Okay, there we go. So after your work experience, you'll want to highlight course projects. You would highlight them similarly to how you did for your work experience. So you can start off with a project title and then the school that you did the project or where you did the project and then when it was completed. You want to make sure that the dates on the right-hand side, if you have them all on the right-hand side, be sure that they're consistent throughout your whole resume. And we'll talk more about formatting as well once we're done with each of the sections here. Underneath each of the projects, you'll want to have a few bullet points detailing what you did in that project. You might want to start off with the first bullet point explaining, giving a brief explanation of that project, what it was, what the purpose of the project was, what your goal for it was, and a few other bullet points that highlight any skills or achievements that are relevant to the jobs that you're applying for. After your course projects, you can go into your skills section, and under your skills section, you should have 3 different sections. So languages. For languages, if you speak multiple, you can have in parentheses the level of proficiency that you have with each language. And then you should have a software skills section and a design and presentation skills section. For those sections, you can start by listing the ones that you're most proficient in. You don't need to have like in parentheses a level of proficiency. You can just list the software and design and presentation skills that you have that are relevant to the job that you're applying for. After your skills section, you can go into your awards and recognition section, highlight anything. For example, if you were a part of a club or if you were part of the CPD or Creative Careers Mentorship Program. You can also highlight any affiliations that you have with any organizations. Next, we have this is a few more examples of experiences that you can highlight include sponsored projects. So if you're wondering what else you can highlight, you can also highlight any trainings that you've completed, any workshops or lectures, student activities. So if you started a club or you were part of a club, any travel or study abroad experience, community service, volunteer experience, if you belong to any student or professional organizations, and any college coursework. You can include all of this in your resume. And in your education section, you can also include, for example, any academic achievements, for example, if you were on the provost list. So when it comes to formatting, you want to make sure that your resume is consistent, the format is consistent throughout. So make sure it is plain text. If you're writing an ATS-friendly resume, it should be plain text. You should have a resume that's not too overly stylized or designed. The date formatting, if you're going to have it on the right-hand side, it should be consistent all throughout the entire resume. You should have most of the relevant information appearing on the top half of the page. So start with your education first and then go into your work experience and projects skills, the way we have outlined in our sample resume. You also want to make sure that your resume is completely error-free. So be sure that it's polished, it's ready to submit to a hiring manager. You want to make sure that the grammar, spelling, and punctuation is error-free, partly for ATS purposes or applicant tracking systems. We'll talk about why that's important, but also because it's something that you don't want your resume rejected for if there's a simple error on there. And if you do need any help with grammar, spelling, or punctuation, we recommend that you visit the Writing Center for additional support. Also be sure that you don't have any small fonts. So usually 10 to 12 point font is good and readable. Make sure that your headers reflect the information that's underneath each of those sections. Be aware of any offensive images or sketches. If you're writing an ATS-friendly resume, you shouldn't have any images on there. You also want to make sure that your resume is easy to read and you have appropriate margins all the way around. Usually that's 1 point font all the way around because you want to make sure it's also not too text heavy. You want to have some white space in there as well. And keep it at 1 page. That's a suitable length. Unless you have more than 10 years of experience or you're a grad student, you really have a lot of experience that's related to the job you want to apply for, you can go into the 2nd page, but otherwise we recommend that you keep it at 1 page. So if you're applying for roles within the US, just some quick tips. Standard US resumes are 1 page. They don't have any personal details like age, gender, or marital status. They also, excuse me, do not have any photos. So make sure you do not have any photos included on your resume if you're submitting a job within the US. They don't list salary requirements, and they do not say references available upon request. So only include references at the request of the employer. If they are requested, they should be included in a separate piece of paper or separate document with a heading that matches your resume. If you are applying for roles outside of the US, I recommend researching best practices for resume writing. You can also take a look at Going Global, which you can access through Connect. That's a good resource for you to check to see what best practices are for submitting resumes for different countries. All right, so now let's talk a little bit more about how to describe your experiences. When you're describing your experiences, you want to make sure that you're using keywords. You want to use vocabulary of the professional. You want to use action words too, like designed, collaborated, developed, coordinated, executed, etc. Those kinds of words are going to help you describe what you were responsible for. They're going to help you better describe your accomplishments, the roles in which you've worked, and employers will expect to see these because you'll see when you're reviewing job descriptions, there will be action verbs or action words there that you can pull from. So if you have experience with those skills or those keywords that you see in the job description, be sure to incorporate them in your resume in a way that's relevant to your experience. You'll also want to quantify experiences wherever possible. So for example, you could say something like incorporated feedback from designers to resolve product producibility and budget concerns, leading to a 15% reduction in production cost. So that shows a result that's quantifiable. If you have any quantifiable results like that, that would be great to include. You also want to use any examples that showcase skills that you have. So again, refer to the job description or internship description and provide examples that you see in there that you have experience doing. So for example, if you want to demonstrate teamwork and leadership skills, you could say something like collaborated successfully with teammates while managing the team's schedule, ensuring deadlines were met despite production delays. You'll also want to make sure you're focusing on your contributions to your employer and your accomplishments. What did you contribute to the team? So a few questions that may help you with developing your bullet points for your experience sections are, what did you do? How did you do it? And what was the result? And you don't necessarily need to structure your bullet points with these questions in this order, but it does help to give you ideas of how you can write out your bullet points in a descriptive way that really shows what you did with your employers. So we have a few examples here. The action verb we used in the first example is collaborated. What did we do? We collaborated with a number of designers. How? Via Zoom and in person. What was the result? Meeting project deadlines. So that final bullet point was collaborated with 5 designers via Zoom and in person to meet project deadlines. For the second example, we have the action verb designed. What did we do? We designed social media and outreach materials. How did we do it? Using InDesign and Photoshop. So we incorporated software knowledge in there. And what was the result? Increased followers by 15%. So that final bullet point turned out as design social media and outreach materials using InDesign and Photoshop, increasing followers by 15%. So asking yourself those 3 questions, what did you do? How did you do it? What were the results? Is going to really help you with structuring your bullet points and incorporating more skills and software knowledge into your experience sections, into your work experience, project sections. And this also includes soft skills that you don't include in your skills section. Another example might be explored color, material, and finish variations in accordance with user research and user experience results to determine ideal final product components. So really use the job description to help you out as well. You want to see the way that they list out the job responsibilities and refer to your resume to make sure that you have the relevant information appearing first in each of your sections. So you can do a comparison between the job description and your resume. And I will show you what that might look like when we take a look at a job description together. All right, and some general do's and don'ts. You want to make sure your portfolio website is clickable. You want to make sure your resume is tailored and targeted to the roles that you're applying for. So it is a process, but you want to make sure that each resume is going to be tailored to each job description you're applying for. It should be different. Every resume should be different. You should have multiple resumes for each job you're applying for, and be sure to title them something that will be recognizable to you. You can use it as a reference, but make sure that you are targeting it or tailoring it to the job you're applying for. That's going to help generate interviews for that role. You also want to make sure that you're updating it as you're completing projects, as you're experiencing different things in your different roles. Make sure that you're updating it, because it's easier to do it then than at the end of your role or at the end of a project, when it might be a bit more difficult for you to recall some information. You also want to make sure you're relating it to the employer's needs. So refer to the job description, make note of the keywords and skills that you see there, highlight accomplishments, proofread it, and keep it concise. So don't use personal information. Don't use first person like I design. If it's a past experience, you would say designed social media and outreach materials rather than I design XYZ. Do not list salary requirements. Do not use contractions or abbreviations. So again, you'll want to spell everything out. Don't list addresses of previous employers. Don't give a reason for leaving positions. And lastly, do not put references available upon request. Okay, so now let's talk about what an applicant tracking system is. An applicant tracking system is a software that a lot of companies use now to help review resumes, to help filter out resumes so that they have a smaller sort of pool to review. So one of the ways that ATS works is it might filter resumes for a keyword. So let's say you've submitted your resume for a job online through the employer's website. If it goes through the applicant tracking software, if they have an applicant tracking software, your resume could be scanned and hiring managers could look for keywords. And if your resume has those keywords, it'll be pulled for review. If it doesn't have those keywords, it'll be filtered out. So that's why it's really important to make sure you're using the keywords that you see in the job description. Make sure you're checking your spelling and grammar, because you might think that you have a keyword in there, but if it's misspelled, it won't be pulled. And create 2 different resumes. So if you want to have a more designed resume, that's fine, but be sure that you also have a plain text ATS friendly one. That way it does go through that ATS software, just in case the job you're applying for does have that software, or does use that software. You can submit your ATS friendly one to make sure that once it is pulled for review, the hiring manager can review it and it'll get to the hiring manager for review. Some of the ways that I've seen that resumes don't pass that ATS scanning software is if maybe they have images that prevent the scanning software from pulling all of the text there. They might have complicated formats. So I recommend starting with just a plain document like a Google Doc or a Pages doc or a Word doc. You don't want to start with something that has a format already, because that might interfere with the ATS software. Another thing I've seen is sometimes students will submit maybe like a JPEG or PNG of their resume. You want to make sure you're submitting a file type that is compatible with the employer's software. So usually that's a Word or PDF, and it'll probably say also in the job description or in the job application. But if you want to be on the safe side, then you can use a PDF. And we have some tips on our website too to make sure that your resume is ATS friendly, so it passes the ATS software and then moves forward to be reviewed by the hiring manager. All right. So on the very top here, we have an example of an ATS-friendly resume, you'll notice that it's just black and white text. It's very simple formatting, but it's still organized nicely with headers that correspond to the information for each header. The name is clear. You can see it's clearly stated at the top with the contact information there. There are no images or logos. You'll notice down below here, the formatting is a bit more funky. There is some tables. It looks like there is some pre-existing format or template that these individuals used. And there's images, logos, all of which can interfere with the applicant tracking system. All right, so I'm going to give you all just a minute to stretch, grab some water, and then we will talk about how we can use AI as a tool. And we will have some time at the end of our conversation for questions. So I'll start the timer. We can continue at 4:30 or 4:31 when the timer ends. All right, the timer's ended, so let's continue with how we can use AI as a tool. And I want to do a quick poll just out of curiosity. I'm curious how many of you have either used SkillSyncer or ChatGPT, and I have a poll here. 1 second. There we go. So feel free to answer the 2 questions there. How many of you use SkillSyncer or ChatGPT as a tool when you've updated or created a resume? Okay. Thank you for those of you participating. I see no one's used SkillSyncer, but you have used ChatGPT. Okay. Okay. So as a summary, or just to summarize, I want to briefly explain what SkillSyncer is, but we're going to focus more on ChatGPT today. So SkillSyncer is a tool that we have more information about on our website, but what it is it allows you to, it scans your resume, it allows you to update or upload your resume and upload a job description. It will then scan both and give you a match score based off of how well you match yourself to the job description. So SkillSyncer can be really helpful when you're wanting to tailor a job or your resume to a specific job that you're applying for. You just need to make sure that it is pulling the keywords that are relevant. So you still need to make sure you're reading through the job description, looking through to see that all of the keywords were pulled, all of the correct keywords were pulled, just to make sure that you have the most accurate score. For those of you interested in trying SkillSyncer out, I believe the free version allows you to upload either 1 or 2 resumes a week. And I believe they offer also a premium version for anyone with an EDU email address. They offer that for a year. So if it's something you're interested in, if you find that you really like the free version, maybe you can try out the premium version. But I wanted to discuss a few ways we can use ChatGPT. That's what I want to focus on today, since I know that a lot of students use ChatGPT. So one of the ways that we can use it is to identify high impact keywords in job descriptions. And we'll walk through ChatGPT together so that we can, I can show you how you can do that. You can also use it to check your spelling and grammar and ask for tips on how to strengthen your resume. So I'm going to click into ChatGPT and then share my screen. so that you can all see what I'm looking at. All right, everyone can see what I'm looking at, right? So we are going to start off with giving ChatGPT a prompt. We're going to say, and I'm going to type this prompt into the chat if anyone wants to follow along, but we are going to say, I am a student looking to update my resume so that it is tailored to a specific job. Can you help me pick out keywords from a job description that I should incorporate into my resume? I'm going to drop this in the chat for anyone who wants to follow along. Okay, so now it's asking to share the job description. I have an example pulled up already, so we're going to use this one that we have here that's on our job board. We are going to copy the most relevant information from the job description. So look through the job description and make sure you're pulling out the key parts of it. So it looks like up until your role, qualifications and experience, and the nice to haves. That should all be relevant information. We're going to copy that information, go back to our tab and paste it here. And then it will generate the results. So you can use this with any job description. Just be sure you're typing in or plugging in the most relevant parts of the job description. You would do the same for SkillSyncer. If you're trying out SkillSyncer, you're going to pick out the most important pieces of information from the job description. And then it can generate some key phrases or skills that you can include. And this is a good way for you to get ideas of other skills that maybe you do have and just didn't include in your skills section. So you can get ideas of skills to include there to add to your resume. You can also get ideas of skills that you can incorporate into your experience sections. So I came up with an example already based off of the skills here and the keywords that were generated. And that example was collaborated with team members to conduct research on current animation techniques, organizing and sharing findings to support project development. Because you'll notice here, if you read through the job description, you would be able to pick this out too, but ChatGPT helped us. And one of the things that it mentioned here was that was important was research and reference gathering. So, and it also mentions collaboration and teamwork. So it's covering a few things. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT if it can spell check my sentence or my bullet point. I purposely have an error in there, but it will correct the spelling. So even mistakes like this, if for example, the ATS scanning software is looking for the word collaborated and it's misspelled on your resume, then it won't be pulled. So you want to make sure you have all the correct spelling and grammar. And then we're also going to ask, based off of the job description provided, what other keywords or skills should I include in my resume? So it's going to probably generate a lot of the keywords and skills that it pulled up at the very top. But just in case it does generate new results, you have more ideas of, for example, software to include in your software skills section. Communication and organization skills that you can incorporate into your projects and professional experience section. Same thing with problem-solving skills. So it will generate results. You can also ask, for example, do you have tips for how to strengthen my resume? And it'll generate some results for that as well. And a lot of this is what we've covered today. So focus on relevant experience, use keywords from the job description, quantify your achievements wherever possible, Highlight transferable skills. So you might not have experience that's directly related to the jobs that you're applying for, but you'll still want to highlight those transferable skills that are applicable to those jobs, like organization, communication, time management. And then it'll generate lots of results, and it's still going, so. Proofread. All right. I am going to enter those questions that I asked ChatGPT in the chat as well, in case anyone wants to use those. Any questions so far? Okay, I'm gonna go back to my slide deck and show you a few more things I have for you. So here we have, these are some of our resume resources. I'm also going to drop in the chat the links for them. So feel free to scan them, take a photo, take a screenshot, but I'll also drop in all of the links into the chat. So these are a few of them on the slide here. And here are more of those. For action words, examples on action words, more information about ATS, and more information about SkillSyncer. And then in the chat, I've dropped in those same links. So our resume writing guide, which you can find on our Creative Careers website, our resume template, the one that we reviewed on the slides, more information about ATS, a document that we have with tips for how to align yourself to a job description, a document that we have for examples of action words, more information about SkillSyncer, a web page or a page that we have on our resource website, and then the student portal link to make an advising appointment or to make an email review appointment if you'd like to get your resume reviewed by us. So we do have those two options. You can submit your resume for an email review, which is an asynchronous appointment. You wouldn't meet with an advisor. You would submit your documents, they review it, give you feedback, and then they send it back to you within 24 hours of your selected appointment time. And then we also have advising appointments. Those are one-on-one 45-minute appointments where you do meet with an advisor virtually or in person. And we can talk about your resume, cover letter, portfolio, anything that you feel like you need support in, we can talk about that in our advising appointment. And if you're not sure, just ask us and we'll let you know if we can, if it is something that we can help you out with in an advising appointment. Now I am going to stop the recording and then answer any questions. We do have some time for questions, so let me stop the recording first. Thank you. Okay.